A lot of times, if we know it's about the API, we definitely know we need at least reference documentation. But a lot of times to bring all these features together, you want to like tell the story and understand how to put them together. So in that case, you would have maybe a guide, a step-by-step tutorial.
Welcome to the Developer Spotlight Show. Today in the spotlight, we have Allison Hodgson, technical writer at Google. Welcome, Allison.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me, what does a technical writer do?
Yeah, technical writer, it sounds like you're just writing, but there's so many things you actually end up doing. So you're really embedded with product teams and working with engineers to understand the technology behind the product and how developers, in this case, might use it. So I work for Google Workspace in the platform, and we document a lot of APIs. So we have to figure out how would people use this API? What are they trying to build? And you're spending a lot of time understanding the technology, but then also figuring out what people want to do with the technology and then writing about it.
Very cool. So like in my situation, when I write a video script, let's say we're launching a new feature to chat apps. My first step is I will go through your documentation that you wrote.
Appreciated.
Exactly. That is how I learn how this feature works. And then I think about, okay, how could I now put this in a video? Do I want to make a how-to video? Do I want to create an extra illustration? And so I'm just thinking that is my process. What is your process? So again, new feature launches in a chat app. What are the steps that you take?
Yeah, so you have to figure out what type of content the developer might be looking for. So sometimes if they're calling the chat API and it's like a new field or a new functionality, we're adding a field and we're describing what it is. But a lot of times it's more complex than that because it's used in connection with other, features of the platform. So a lot of times if we know it's about the API, we definitely know we need at least reference documentation. But a lot of times to bring all these features together, you want to like tell the story and understand how to put them together. So in that case, you would have maybe a guide, a step-by-step tutorial, things like that. And then the developer relations team also is a great advocate for understanding what kind of code samples people need, because you can describe a feature all you want, but a lot of times developers are like, I just want to see an example. And so code samples are incredibly helpful. And so sometimes we're either creating the code sample or we're working with engineers who know the product really well to create it, or working with developer relations to create it. And so, there's a lot of different components. And then I think if it's something that you might want to, so the thing that's really interesting about the Workspace platform is that, I could be documenting the Google Chat API, for example, but this might connect to all these different products. They might be also creating an add-on that has other functionality and they're putting it in the marketplace. So you have to make sure they understand all the different types of features and things they need to use and how they might connect. So they might need to go to the marketplace documentation as well, and they want to find that information about publishing a chat app. So it's a large platform and there's a lot of features, and so we try to really think like the developers and understand what they want to know. And so, it's really fun. It's interesting.
Okay. Now, you mentioned writing is part of the job, obviously, so you have to be good at writing, but you also have to think like a developer. You have to have technical knowledge. So how does one become a tech writer? What was your specific way to this role?
Yeah, there are so many paths because you obviously, come to it if you love, communication and words and writing. But a lot of times, there's engineers that are like, I really love, technology and I love working with APIs, but I don't want to be coding. I actually love explaining things. So if you like teaching, there's a lot of people, tech writers, who enjoy teaching or explaining. And actually what you do is a great example of that. It's like another way of explaining and communicating the value of something and helping people and empowering people to use something. So with tech writing, I was in communications previously. And I was working in the educational space. So I was working mostly in nonprofits, and I ended up at a university doing communications and marketing there. And I was like, I'm just really interested in, understanding, computer science and software. So I ended up studying part-time there as well at the same time. And yeah, and I discovered tech writing. I didn't actually know. I knew I was a strong writer and communicator, and it's a very interesting path, to find it that way. Because a lot of people don't study technical writing. A lot of people just become technical writers over time. So I was actually someone who understood the discipline and found it through coursework, which I love because it was so interesting to understand how all these types of content are created. It was like very niche. It was a very cool program. So shout out to Carnegie Mellon University. Yeah, they were great. And so yeah, I just discovered it through that, and that's how I got started.
Okay, very cool. So I really like collaborating with you and your colleagues because you help me with words. I think you do have a really good way of explaining things. So for all of the viewers, these videos wouldn't be possible without the technical writer. So shout out to you and your team who, create...
You're too kind.
You create incredible documentation. Now, the viewers might be noticing that this is a bit of a different Developer Spotlight episode. We're together in a studio. We're actually currently in Berlin in our offices. And the reason is that we had our Workspace Developer Summit yesterday here, and you gave a presentation there, but you were there the entire day, just connecting with developers. What for you is the benefit of being at such events?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it is like such a privilege and opportunity to be able to speak directly to people, because I write documentation and I click publish and I'm like, I hope this is helpful. And, of course we get feedback and we're always looking to collect data about what people are using and what they like. But it's different than talking to someone who's like, oh, I read this documentation, or even getting such great questions. I literally stare at this API reference. Like, I feel like I know these products really well, and the developers know the documentation and the products even better in some ways, and I learn from them, or I learn more about why they're using it. Again, you're documenting these things, and you think you know all the ways that they might use it, and then you're always surprised at how innovative and creative people are when they're building apps, or what is emerging as a necessity of what they need to do. So yeah, it was so cool. I learned from so many people, and the excitement too, like people who are so interested in the platform. It's so motivating. It's so great. And yeah, I was just so happy to talk to them and learn about what they're doing and what they're building. And yeah, what a privilege. I was so happy to be here.
Yeah, and I was just thinking as you were saying that, maybe kind of like we write the documentation how to use the tools, and the developers actually use the tools to then build things.
Yes.
And when we're at these summits, we get to see what they've built. Actually, yesterday there was a really cool session, which I'll find a way how to publish it on this YouTube channel, where one of our Google Workspace partners here in Germany just had all of these use cases that he went through, explaining the challenges they faced and their customers faced and how they've solved it. And I think that that's just great for us to hear, and it helps us then create better demos for the DevRel team, for you, better documentation, better samples. So I'm super happy you joined us, and I'm super happy we're here in this episode of the Developer Spotlight Show, and I hope to be able to interview you again in the future.
I would love that. Yeah, it's always fun to be on the channel. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Did you hit record?